Hey gang, Melissa Hinault here with the Burnout to All Out podcast. I'm a mom of 3 corporate burnout that built a secondary 6-figure income around my 9-to-5 with little kids. This set me free and allowed me to fire my boss and pursue my wildest dreams. It took grit, persistence, and belief. But now, operating multiple 6-figure businesses as an online entrepreneur and business coach, I have become a serial entrepreneur with a passion to inspire more burnouts to take the leap and go all out and live out their dreams. Each week, I'll bring you inspiring all-out guests, lifestyle business tips, and tools to empower you to take the leap from burnout employee to all-out entrepreneur, making your passion your paycheck. If this mom of 3 corporate burnout can go all out, so can you.
I hope this content blows your mind as much as it did for me the first time I heard Dr. Valerie Rain speak. I resonated so well with what she was speaking to with this concept. I'd never heard of the term Patriarchy Stress Disorder. Never heard of the term, but what I did know was the level of stress that I had experienced as a female in upper level management in corporate America that was paralyzing at moments, and the impact that it was putting on my health. And listening to her speak and present the science behind this century after century, just generation after generation of oppression with women and how it's literally impacted our genetics, called epigenetics, and how we show up in life impacts our health and our burnout. I think you guys are going to really love just her own story as a clinician and the burnout she experienced that literally took her body to paralysis, thinking that it was a stroke, but it turns out she was burnt out. And it created this new passion and research that she conducted, landing on this whole science-backed system that now is helping more women achieve ultimate success, happiness, and fulfillment by healing this integration of trauma and oppression that we have experienced for generations. I used to think this kind of stuff was woo-woo. Over the past year of really tapping into my feminine energy and saying goodbye to the overload of masculine energy that I was operating off of, I can truly attest that this science is fact, and it is impactful to be able to take the science that she speaks to and approach your life as where can it get even better versus how much more can I bear. So many women living these days with being spread so thin and so burnt out and living a lackluster life because of our upbringing, because of our historical generation after generation after generation of what's been handed to us. I know this may sound a little woo-woo. I want you guys to take a listen to this and see if some of you don't resonate with what she has to talk about. And if you love this, then certainly share it with some friends. All right, guys. Oh my gosh. Welcome to the Burnout to All Out podcast. For those of you that are streaming live, I know there's I had a lot of people actually in the LinkedIn community that are my corporate connections, as well as the Burnout to All Out Facebook page. They're going to be really excited for this amazing guest that I've been talking about today, Dr. Valerie. Guys, Dr. Valerie and I we've kind of connected over a group that we're a part of, the Unstoppable Entrepreneurs, where I was able to learn about her mission and her story. And her story, I think, is going to resonate with so many of you. But her mission, I think, is going to impact so many women moving forward, me included. I've already purchased your book. I'm like, there's questions I would love to discuss with you. But just listening to your mission and what you stand for now and what you're educating so many women on is extremely powerful. So I feel so honored, Dr. Valerie, to have you here as a guest today. Share with you guys really quickly that Dr. Valerie, she created the only science-backed system to help women achieve ultimate success, happiness, and fulfillment by healing the integration of trauma and depression. She's got a best-selling book called Patriarchy Stress Disorder. You can grab it off of Amazon after you guys hear her today. I bet you're all going to go in there and grab this book because you're going to want to learn more. And perhaps one of the most important books of the century for women. It's really opened my eyes. So Dr. Valerie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'm so happy to be here with you and our viewers today, Melissa.
Yes, absolutely. So as you know, Dr. Valerie, this podcast really focuses on inspiring those who maybe are straddling the 9 to 5 and looking for, something else beyond working for the big man. For maybe, they're completely burnt out or kind of lost their way or lost their own personal definition of really who they are. We talk about identity, and the longer you're in like a corporate career, the more you end up identifying yourself as the profession versus you as a human being as a whole, right? We've got a ton of audience who, dial in and are listening to be inspired to take that leap, to leave that 9 to 5, to step away from the burnout that many of us have experienced. When I heard your podcast with Kelly Roche a couple weeks ago, and you started talking about your own experience of just really being completely burnt out and not even realizing it till it physiologically impacted you. So I would love for you to, and it really snowballed your research, your books around this idea and science-based concept of patriarchy stress disorder, right? So can you take us back to the Dr. Valerie that had her practice and was just on from the outside, you had climbed Mount Everest and you were on top of the world. Can you take us back to that place before?
Yeah, it seems like a different lifetime now. And it wasn't all that long ago that I was at a place in my life where I really thought that I had accomplished everything I set out to accomplish. I had 2 graduate degrees in psychology. I had a thriving private practice in New York. I had a family and home I loved. And one day I was on the phone with a client when I noticed that I was smiling only with the right side of my face. And the left side of my face just hung in there, as did my left arm. And I ended up,
wow.
Yeah, I ended up in the ER. Where I drove myself using my right arm. I ended up in the ER with symptoms of a stroke. And thankfully, after scanning me up and down for the entire day, they came to the conclusion that my official diagnosis was, quote unquote, just stress. And that, Melissa, both relieved me to no end and puzzled me also very deeply because I actually did not feel stressed. I did not feel stressed. I was living my life. My life was full, but it felt normal. What I was feeling felt normal. I was seeing my clients. I was taking care of things. And the realization that what felt normal to me, to my system, was such a critical level of stress that landed me in the emergency room with the symptoms of the left side of my body going offline. That was awakening. That was really awakening.
Yes.
And I started looking at my life and examining, like, really what is going on. And when the security blanket of the stress and workaholism started slipping, I saw and I felt that I wasn't as happy and fulfilled underneath it as I looked on paper. And that was a really, really dire realization and a really disturbing one because I had done everything I knew how to do, including years of therapy, including reading every self-help book I could get my hands on, and lots of personal development workshops, retreats. you name it. And I really didn't know what else to do. And it was a despairing moment. And I was grateful to have my clients to look up to, because interestingly, my clients were shifting out of that state of disconnection and numbness and stepping into the fullness of their lives. And so I started asking the question of what was I doing for them that I wasn't doing for me?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it turned out that with all of my clients, I was using mind-body trauma healing tools. And the reason I wasn't doing it for me was because, ironically, I didn't think I had any trauma. And my clients didn't think they had any trauma either, by the way, because they had quote unquote normal childhoods, normal lives. They hadn't been through combat. They hadn't experienced big life-threatening events. However, they were all showing these symptoms of trauma, that disconnection from the fullness of their lives, from their bodies, from their authentic desires. And that was the time when there were exciting discoveries coming out of the field of epigenetics, showing that traumatic experiences are genetically transmitted. And that was my huge light bulb moment, recognizing, wow, women have been oppressed for thousands of years. Oppression is traumatic and trauma is genetically transmitted. So there is one kind of trauma, at least, that we all share and that we carry, and that results in our nervous systems constantly being in such an overdrive that we don't even, it's normal. It feels normal. We don't even know that we're stressed.
Right.
And we can go into the reasons of why the nervous system is running on overdrive, which has to do with understanding trauma. But the first thing to understand is that burnout is not our fault. It's not because we're doing something wrong. And in a sense, without understanding trauma and playing big in the world, burnout is inevitable for women without understanding trauma and without tending to our nervous system in a different way.
Oh my gosh. And I'm excited to unpack this and talk with you about this. I take myself, I don't know how much you know about my story, but I take myself back to when I wrote this down because it's so true. I wrote down the disconnection and numbness piece that you become. And in my first episode, I tell my own story. And, I was working a highly demanding job with 2 little kids in diapers with men. All the men I worked with were twice my age, didn't have little kids. And I was setting a standard for myself that was insane. And I was never home, never saw my kids. And where I wanted to circle back on this is that it's so true. I could cry talking about it now. I didn't know what mentally and physically I was truly missing with my children and my moments with them until years later when I quit corporate and came home and became an entrepreneur and had a 3rd child, almost had like a reset button. And my experience with him was so different. And it was the moment I got on a plane to fly my business that I worked from home now, first time traveling in like months. And I started like bawling in this crazy emotion that maybe you can speak to, but I started bawling because I was hurting so badly that I was missing what I was about to miss. And then I was bawling on top of that because I'd never given myself time to feel that way before, because I didn't even know what those emotions, because the first 2 times around as a female, grinding it out, and I built a wall, and the emotion wasn't available to me. I didn't cry on my way to the airport. I didn't think about it. I just was like this minion mentality. And it was so crazy for me to emotionally feel that later. Right. Does that kind of connect to what you were talking about the disconnection and the numbness and just not being associated with it and not knowing that you're
100%. So much, Melissa. I'm so glad that you brought this up. This numbness, this disconnection, these are actually trauma adaptations. These are protective mechanisms in our system that actually serve to keep us from getting overwhelmed, because you were in a situation when you couldn't afford to just grieve and have all these emotions and fall apart because you needed to perform at the peak level day after day after day.
Right.
And you have incurred quite a grief debt over time. And
Yeah.
this is something that happens with most people. It can be that it can be grief debt. It could be joy debt. There is a story in my book, that story of a young girl who won an award at school. And against all odds, she ran for this award, for this honor, against a girl who was like the most popular girl in class. And she won it, and she was so excited, and she ran home and she opened the door, and her mother suffered from depression. And that day was one of the bad days. So the moment she opened the door, she felt like the air had been sucked out of the room and there was no room for her joy. And so she just stuffed that joy. She repressed that joy and she went on as if nothing had ever happened. And all of us, this is also a part of trauma. I'm so glad that we're having this conversation. Trauma is not only having an experience that is painful and that could cause the emotions of anger and grief. Traumatic experiences also can be around repressed joy. So in my book, I have redefined traumatic experiences as anything that made us feel unsafe in our fullest authentic expression.
Wow.
Physically or emotionally, and created trauma adaptations to keep us safe going forward. So if it felt unsafe in some moment, and we've all had those moments, it felt unsafe to cry. Yeah, to show your feelings, or felt unsafe to be angry, and then we stuff it. Or it felt unsafe to be truly exuberantly, fully happy and ecstatic, and then we stuff it. And then our whole bodies are full of that stuffed energy, and we're not fully feeling, we're not fully expressing. And then there comes a moment, and usually it is a crisis moment, or something else punctures that. Like it happened with you when you were getting on that plane for the first time, and it's like the floodgates opened. You were able to feel, and you felt so deeply. And I just want to say, when that happens, there is nothing wrong with you, right? You're not broken. This is that grief debt or whatever, or joy debt, that we need to process those emotions. Unless we do, they are sitting in the body and they're preventing us from fully feeling, fully expressing, fully living our lives.
Yeah. Well, and it was such an interesting dynamic of emotion because, in one moment I was mourning, I was just emotionally sad to be separated from them. And I knew what I was going to be missing from them. And then in the next thought, I was like, I've never truly felt this sorrowful before. Like I didn't know. And so that just made me bawl even more. But then there was this moment of gratitude that I'm so glad I've changed that. So it's just this whole
Yeah, there's a lot. And then all that full spectrum of emotion is, we need that safe space and the opportunity to feel it all.
Yeah. Let's kind of back it up a little bit and share with everybody, maybe just kind of the core fundamentals of the patriarchy stress disorder and kind of, historically where it stems from. I know we talked about it being like genetically, century over century. It's something that we've experienced as women. Can you delve into that a little bit more? Because I was just fascinated listening to you talk about this.
Absolutely. I'm going to share a study that really illustrates what happens with that genetically transmitted trauma, how it's formed and how it's passed down. In this study, researchers introduced the smell of cherry blossoms to mice while simultaneously zapping their feet with mild electric shocks. These mice were then bred, and their children and their grandchildren when exposed to the smell of cherry blossoms, showed a strong fear and anxiety reaction.
Wow.
PSD, right? That's PSD. PSD is women fearing the smell of cherry blossoms. What is cherry blossoms for women? Everything that we authentically desire and that has always been prohibited and punishable for women, such as being in our power, authentically expressing our sexuality, our brilliance, loving who we love and receiving that love, making lots of money, even owning our own bodies. Women did not own our own bodies. Women did not own our own destinies, our lives, not even our children. Women had no rights. Women could not survive without being attached to a man. Women didn't marry for love. Women married for survival. So this is all like, that's heavy history. And we may be wondering, what does it have to do with us right now? Well, think about the mice and cherry blossoms. Intergenerationally, we have received that transmission that our power equals dangerous. Power equals dangerous. So here we are, high achieving women with all the opportunity in the world. And our subconscious interprets opportunity as danger, interprets our power as dangerous. When we start making more money, when we start reaching for our desires in our personal lives, gosh, even fitness programs, like we start doing something that will take our well-being, our power, our self-expression to the next level, and then self-sabotage comes in. Things happen that take us in a different direction. Why? It is not your fault. And I'm saying this again and again because it is how the trauma operates in the subconscious. It is keeping us safe from the cherry blossoms. And there's no amount of mindset work that is going to help resolve that because it lives in the body. It lives in the nervous system. And the way we approach healing it, that's the good news, that it can be healed. And we can stop that intergenerational transmission of trauma. Isn't that amazing? There is research to show that as well. And the way we work with it is by rewiring the nervous system and teaching the nervous system that in this world of opportunity, this is actually safe. Like the times have changed. They no longer burn us at the stake. Yeah, it's still not a safe world for women. However, where we source our power, we source our power in visibility, in speaking out, in stepping up, in being connected, in living on purpose, in making money, in partnering with our true partners who are going to support us in the best possible way. And that opportunities and possibilities of that expand the more we heal PSD.
All right. Chances are, if you're listening to my podcast today, you are a social seller of some aspect. You're in business, you're online somehow. Do you want to find more business builders in less time to 10x your business without playing the daily Instagram and Facebook game? Are you tired of being on the hunt daily for new customers of your product to then try to bait and switch them? You know what I'm talking about. To be interested in building a business with you. I have been there. The biggest mistake I see that slows down the expansion and stability of a social seller's business is if they spend way too much time recruiting on media for consumption of their company's products and way too little time in direct conversations with like-minded professionals that would love to actually hear about the business opportunity at hand. I then see so many painstakingly trying to drag customers through the sand to catch the vision of a business model that the consumer has no interest in, wasting time and getting burnt out. Can you relate? If you know my story, you know I've been there and since cracked the code and now drive a highly profitable social selling business 100% off of LinkedIn. Imagine finding with ease customers highly motivated for what services you have to offer to grow them, their business, or to become a business partner with you. That's what you will hear from my students who've gone through my previous LinkedIn method trainings. You don't have to look far. I am so excited for the birth of my brand new academy that has been built out based off of the success and the feedback of my previous students who graduated from my programs. So introducing to you the LinkedIn Method Academy. In this 6-month academy, you will learn to become a business recruiting master on LinkedIn to 10x your business, transform how you brand yourself as the business owner that you are, and master attraction marketing that results in prospects begging to get into your calendar to learn more about what you have to offer. The LinkedIn Method Academy is a first of its kind. It's an ick-free social sellers recruiting method dream. We take away all the spammy tactics that you've been taught on Insta and Facebook. And I teach you how to position yourself as the professional business owner that you are. I teach you how to professionally build your business brand, create an ideal network and pipeline generation that creates massive momentum, and a funnel of weekly calls with viable, motivated humans who are eager to learn more about what you have to offer. It's high-touch coaching, on-demand learning vault that's uniquely customized to meet you exactly where you are on your LinkedIn journey. And we have a dynamic Facebook community with ongoing live training, performance labs and workshops, and hot seat coaching to support your 6-month journey to owning LinkedIn. You also get assigned a personal concierge who will stay with you through the entire program to support you and hold you accountable. Did I mention that there'll also be polished, top-selling social sellers who went before you and are now mentors to share best practices and give feedback in the academy? Guys, this is unprecedented and peerless. There's nothing else out there like this. Think immersion in a community that is the utmost professional and results-driven that will help raise your own bar of performance along the way. Do I have your curiosity? Come check out our free 5-day LinkedIn Method workshop streaming live on our Facebook page, Burnout to All Out. Starting October 19th, we'll be kicking off a 5-day workshop completely free with tips and tricks. Now, if you're just eager to get started and enroll today, you don't want to wait, go to our academy. Go to www.livethefreelife.co. www.livethefreelife.co. Enroll by October 25th and save 20% as an early bird. Now there's limited seats. I'm doing that on purpose. I want to keep it high vibe and high touch. All right. So what are you doing in these final months of 2020 to create your trajectory for 2021? If you're looking to 10x your lead generation for business in 2021 through a step-by-step process of proven methods, condensing time and driving results, you found the right home. I hope to see you in the academy. Oh my gosh. I'm just loving this conversation. Let me ask you this because it's just so fascinating and I'm diving deep into this. I can't wait for your book to get here. I'm reading, Audacity to be Queen right now, which really talks about the feminine energy versus the masculine energy. And I can't wait for your book to come in and read. Help us understand, how can you we talk about how many high performers, a lot of people in my network are just super high performers. Some of my best friends I'm obviously not going to disclose names, but have literally been admitted to the ER thinking they had a heart attack. Yes. And they were told it was a panic attack. And they're clinicians that like not knowing the buildup to that level of stress. I mean, what are some of the things that we can recognize before it gets to the point that I'm a firm believer now. I wasn't always I was very black and white, very textbook, trained in kind of that Western medicine. But the older I get, the more I believe that our mind, and obviously, you're huge on this, but our mind ultimately manifests. The stress comes out somewhere. Like you said in the very beginning, it's going to manifest somewhere energetically. How do we as women begin to recognize this sooner, begin to take control of this sooner? And just what are some of the signs that can get us to recognize it sooner rather than later?
Isn't that a bazillion-dollar question right here, Melissa? And here is an answer that my answer sucks. It's not an optimistic answer. And I would love to be proven wrong. But here's the truth. There's nothing you could have said to me when I was living my life in the invisible, in the prison of PSD, and I was a high performer with high levels of stress, and I was wearing it as a badge of honor. And there's nothing you could have said to me that would have stopped me. In fact, I had like one of my close friends was calling something out in terms of like, well, are you truly happy? Because she knew like the details of my life that I didn't really share with a lot of people, and I didn't really share with myself all that much because I used work as my drug, and I just didn't go there, right? Like, but in terms of not feeling fully happy and fulfilled, and she would call me out on that, and my mind would make up all sorts of stories, and this is a part of trauma adaptations. This is a part of protective mechanisms. I call them prison guards in my system, and they are committed to keeping us in the invisible in the prison. And their function is to keep us safe, including safe from the pain of realizing. Because when I realized that I wasn't truly deeply happy and fulfilled, that was devastating. That was much more painful than ended up in the ER. And so it's complex, right? She was calling me out on that, and I was saying, no, you don't understand. And I would make up a lot of stories. So there is this thing where until a person wakes up, there is nothing, right? Nothing we can do to facilitate that. But I also believe, maybe because I want to believe that conversations such as what we're having right now, maybe put some seeds in the ground, and they will sprout maybe sooner. Maybe it doesn't have to take a life-threatening crisis. Maybe it doesn't have to take your marriage falling apart. Maybe it doesn't have to be a financial circumstance that breaks down that existing structure. I'm going to say, as a disruptive thing, to start tracking these things sooner, just start noticing what gives you true pleasure and true joy in little things. It doesn't have to be like a vacation in the Bahamas. Just open your sock drawer. There's a chapter in my book about a sock drawer. I'm not going to give it away, but for me, that exercise was a huge domino effect that changed my life. But open your sock drawer and just start examining, like, which of these socks actually give me pleasure and joy, and which ones I'm wearing just because they're there and I actually hate them. And just start weeding through your life and looking for pleasure and joy and what you're tolerating, and interrogating what you're tolerating and why. And maybe it doesn't have to be this way, because at the same time, I was tolerating 14-hour work days without breaks, where I wouldn't even get up to go pee between clients, not because somebody was making me. I was running my own practice, but because I was in the invisible, in the prison of PSD, and that was running my system.
Right. Oh my gosh. And so this resonates so much with me. Even at the beginning of last year, I, had launched my new business on top of my social selling business I already had. And I was coming out of, 2 years of retirement of corporate. But what I learned in hiring my business coach, who's very, very well trained in the masculine and feminine, and she's always trying to pull me out of this corporate masculine pattern in my brain, where I came out of, even when I came out of corporate to run a business from home, I was operating like I was in corporate, where I had my calendar had to be packed. Like you, I didn't have potty breaks. And here I was working at home for myself. And she's like, your favorite word, you're obsessed with the word busy. Like, why are you obsessed with the word busy? Right. And so I love what you're saying, because my own transformation over the past year, she's really helped me understand. You talk about the upper limit problem, where like for me, when I was presented a whole new opportunity for my business to explode, I had a million reasons in my head why I couldn't handle it, why I wouldn't be able to manage it, why there was too much on my plate. There was always this story of overwhelm. And I told myself I couldn't do them both. And I want to fast forward to this, like kind of come full circle on this, because it really ties in nicely with what you're talking about. But what I've been coached to do this year that has completely changed my life is exactly what you just spoke of, the dissecting. I've literally cut out any, like the toxic parts of my life that do not provide joy, right? Create more time for joy with my family, but even just delegating responsibilities and hiring people to do those things that they do better anyway. And I don't have to work 8 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I look at like my day today, I'm making triple what I was making in corporate America, but I had a massage today. I did hot yoga today, and I did my spin today, and I hustled my business like around all of that. But there's more joy in my life now because I'm making space for it. And then energetically, I show up better for my clients, for my children, for my spouse. But the Melissa a year ago who has seriously suffered from patriarchy stress disorder, I know for sure, wouldn't have even heard this. Like I wouldn't have even been able to process it.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean you can work less and be happier and healthier and still make more money?
Yeah, that programming is very, very strong. Thank you for sharing from your journey, Melissa, and so excited for your transformation. And it really keeps on unfolding. I call this the game of how good can it get versus the game of how much can I bear?
Yeah. That's exactly where I am right now. Every month I'm like, oh my gosh, a bigger project coming my way. I used to think that wasn't even possible. Or then when it came a part of an opportunity, I think, well, I can't handle it. And now I'm just like, bring it on. How much better can it get? And I just love everything that stands for, you know, and every aspect. So this has just been so informative. So your book is out. Is there any final just bits of advice or nuggets for the audience that if there's one thing they could take away from today for maybe there's folks experiencing burnout or on the verge right now, and your story and my story are resonating with them? Any kind of takeaways or pieces of advice for now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So if you suspect that maybe your life is not as aligned with your authentic desires as you'd like it to be, again, not your fault. There is no moral failure here. It's not a shortcoming. There are other things at play. And if this intrigues you to look deeper into what maybe is playing out in your subconscious and creating these circumstances, you can download the first chapter of my book. It's free on my website, drvalerie.com/book. And right there on that same page, you can download the practices that are supplemental, that accompany the book. And among them, there is a meditation on desire. And that is a disruptive one. I got to warn you, got to come with a warning label.
Why is it disruptive?
Because it can change life in unpredictable ways.
Really?
So once you start getting in touch with your authentic desires versus what you think you should want.
It. I hope you guys are listening to this.
Yeah, things really do begin to unravel, and ultimately all in the direction of how good can it get. But initially it can be like a lot can come up. So it's one of the practices that I share here, drvalerie.com/book. And also we started offering something that is very profoundly healing, and women just love being a part of this. Every season, we gather women for an experience that is free. It is a virtual retreat. It's called the Thriving Experience, thethrivingexperience.com. And what happens there is that after you've read the book, you receive that information, and it's great, right? Now you see things differently. You know it's not your fault. But change happens through a transformation, and transformation happens through a direct experience. And that is what we're facilitating in the span of a weekend. Oh, wow. Our next one is coming up in November, which is going to be it's interesting timing indeed. When I scheduled it, I didn't realize that it was going to be a few days after the election. So there's going to be big energy present. Yes. And women from all over the world come together to really experience that shift from the game of how much can I bear to the game of how good can it get, what this shift from survival to thriving actually feels in the body, in the mind, in how we think about things, how we make choices, how we arrange our schedules, our businesses, our relationships, our relationship with ourselves. So come and play with us if that resonates with you, thethrivingexperience.com, and meet other women on this journey.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And I bet you're going to get a lot of takers on that. I'm a huge advocate of just the work I've done before even bumping into you, and knowing what you have to offer has to be so incredibly profound. I'm going to have to check it out myself.
We'd love to have you and play together, Melissa.
Yeah,
it's a powerful wave, powerful tide, right? High tide.
It needs to be discussed.
Boats.
I think it needs to be discussed more. I think the reality is I wasn't even aware. I wasn't even aware that this was a thing until, it was brought forward to me, till I heard your podcast with Kelly, and it was like hit me square in the face that oh my gosh, so it's not just me, it is an entire female community worldwide that's experiencing this. And if we can be a voice for women to inspire and encourage for us to learn more about this, take action, and live happier lives, more fulfilled lives, to give ourselves permission to do that. I love this. So Dr. Valerie, thank you so much. I know you gave a little bit of information about your event, but where can people find you, follow you? I believe you have a podcast as well that people can come really fill their cup up.
Thank you for asking. Yes, my podcast is called the Dr. Valerie Podcast. And I'm most active on Instagram, Dr. Valerie Rain. And if you download the first chapter of my book, the book resources at drvalerie.com/book, you will also have the option of subscribing to my Thriving Notes, my newsletter, and stay in the loop. And most importantly, don't let the spark of that got passed to you today, don't let that spark go out, because our entire culture is telling women every day, it is your fault. You need to fix yourself, take this medication, lose weight, right? Wear this, whatever. And this is a very countercultural proposition that there is truly nothing wrong with you, and we're all in the same boat. I am on my healing journey as well. And my life partner and partner in this work, Jeffrey, we work together, we teach together. He facilitates healing for me as well, because it runs deep, and the game of how good can it get is truly unlimited. And every step on that journey takes us deeper into the need to heal, deeper material.
Yes. So true and so profound. Well, thank you so much for jumping on tonight, Dr. Valerie, and just sharing your knowledge and inspiring so many others. And I'm sure you're going to get some followers from this episode. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, Melissa. And thank you for tuning in and sharing your time with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Burnout to All Out podcast. For free resources, materials, or information on my coaching services, go ahead over to livethefreelife.co. That's livethefreelife.co, or check out our Facebook community at Burnout to All Out, and make sure you follow Burnout to All Out on Spotify and subscribe to iTunes. And it would truly mean the world to me if you paused for just a second, gave me that 5-star review of the show, and be sure to share this episode with any burnouts you think would be inspired to go all out after hearing this episode.